Why does the church not want men or women to have pleasure? What is that all about?
So the way that it is viewed is that the human body, which is naturally designed for pleasure, is a mistake. It's weakness of the flesh, so to speak. And so granted, a lot of the time they're referring to like sexual pleasure or but it's not just that. It's even they're so controlling in what information is even allowed in. And so it's like so some people just think pleasure is as sexual, but pleasure can be like auditory. Like what music can you listen to? And it's like, no, no,
Hmm.
no. You can't listen to metal. You can't listen to anything that might quote drive away the spirit. So basically it's you have to be in this pristine place at all time with your thoughts. Um yeah, pleasure was just it was just seen as so bad. So like of course like no
Hmm.
touching yourself, like no masturbation, not even being told about your body correctly to understand like hey there are legit medical things why you may need to do certain things for yourself.
Hmm.
um so yeah, visually appealing stuff. I'm trying to think specifically around men. I just keep thinking of stuff that my mom kept doing. Um, so like, so like the covers of magazines, like how they're on the lines for the checkout.
Hmm.
She would flip them around. If there were women on the front, she would flip it around
Oh my
and do
God.
that everywhere because oh, that woman is being immodest. And if she's being immodest, it means other men can't control their thoughts. And I'm like, rape culture right
Wow, give
there.
men a little bit of credit here. Men
Right.
should be
And
able to
so,
control their thoughts, you know? This is, yeah.
yeah. And so it's almost like they're fed this you can do anything you want because we understand that your sexual drive is out of control. And which is bullshit because I I remember asking my dad as a teenager, "Hey, what would he do if I was raped?" And he said the first question he would ask me is, "What was I wearing?"
That's
And
just
I was like,
horrifying to me. That
"Fuck
is so
you."
horrifying. It's like blame the victim before she's even raped, you know? It's like, oh my
Exactly.
God. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like no, and I know from how my family was repressed and denied things, even okay, pleasure, like even food. Okay, we were poor, so we had beans. At least we had some sort of food. But like pleasure can be even like in food. And it
Hmm.
was that was even denied. It was like anything that gave us a little bit of life was then snuffed out of us. And part of that could have just been my own family and not necessarily religion, but it had religion heavily dominated it, which made those actions happen. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of that came down to me through my mother, like that you shouldn't experience like any real bodily pleasure, you know, to wear clothes that feel amazing, to eat things that taste good would be sinful, you know. I mean, God forbid that you should do that. You know, and to want to look good, to want to feel amazing, look amazing, be amazing, it just was not in her repertoire, you know. It would have been hedonistic, I guess would be the word. You know? So, yeah, so that's there. I mean, you don't have to be a Mormon to believe that, I suppose. But then, like men have a different perception of their bodies. Like they are
yeah.
taught to be proud of their bodies. Like
Mm-hmm.
every little boy is so proud when he pees his name in the snow, or every little boy, you know, is so proud of his dick. And, you know, I mean, they're proud of their muscles when they work out at the gym. They're proud of all this stuff. And women are pretty much like not even allowed to know their body parts or to know, never mind show them off or never mind, you know, except in a slutty way, how how they are in their bodies or how their bodies are or how to like have fun with them, and they're not proud of them. So even that is denied to women, but it's not denied to men.
Yeah. Um, Growing up, my mom was always, we can never wear shorts above the knee. And I'm not even talking like, high rise shorts where your booty's showing. It's like, no, no, shorts have to be below the knee. They can't even be like a level, like an inch above the knee. No, no, that's immodest. Okay, and then like shirts, you have to have a cuff, no sleeveless, like all this other stuff. And her excuse was that she was preparing me for wearing garments when I went through the temple. So I know people joke around about Mormons having magical underwear. They, if you want to, yeah, why not? That's an easy way to put it. So they do have, yeah.
What?
So they have specific white undergarments that they wear when they have gone through the temple, and those undergarments represent commitments and covenants that they have made in the temple. Okay, putting all that aside, you're told you can wear white long johns. Okay, so imagine being a woman. You okay? Normally, you would just wear a bra, right, underneath your shirt,
Right?
and you would feel sexy. You might even feel sexy with that. No, 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 can't do that as a Mormon woman. You're wearing like this white undershirt that covers all the way down, goes past your belly, tuck it into your shirt. You're wearing not sexy panties or anything. You can't wear anything. You have to wear these, they look like shorts. They're white, they cover all of your legs and go down. And so it's just like you're wearing more than a bodysuit. How the hell are you supposed to feel attractive or sexy? So the first time I went through the temple and was given these undergarments to wear, I felt like dying. I had already experienced so much shame around my sexuality and just being a woman. And here I was about to get married and then having stuff thrown on me that I didn't understand. No one ever told me until it was too late and I couldn't back out of it. And it went below my knees. So it was almost like mid calf and I'm like bawling and my sister had to talk to me and she's like, well, how far down are they going? Oh, yeah, no, they try to make you do that. Here's how you get around it. And so she was like trying to help me, like, no, no, of course you're not going to feel sexy wearing this stuff. You need to tell them you're petite so that you can get stuff that'll go a little bit above the knee. So you can at least wear normal shorts. So it was like
Well,
even just trying to find like these little things to, but I did not, I just kept feeling like it was my naked body I had to cover because that's what's shameful according to the Garden of Eden. You know?
wow, that's crazy
It's,
that it's so institutionalized.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there are things that I would never do just because I hate that male attention, but it never came down to me as like dictated by a church or anything like that. But there are, things like I have this thing against like, I generally I love to wear tank tops, but I just don't wear them in public because it just feels too revealing to me. And I have to wonder why, but yeah, because I don't want people gawking at me. And to think that a church would just flat out sanction sanction, let's keep our women unsexy. It's like let's make them wear a burqa or something, because we have to
Yeah.
hide from ourselves and we have to, and hide ourselves from our men and all this other stuff because God forbid that they can't control themselves. It's just bizarro, you know, to even think that. And yet, doesn't the Mormon have like plural marriages and stuff? Aren't the men supposed to be able to have all the women they want?
So up until a certain point, yes. And then Utah said, "Hey, we know what you all are doing. You better stop it, or we're gonna, you know, do something to make you stop it." And they, so then like the traditional Mormon church that is known as right now, that's what stopped the plural marriages. There are factions or sectors or whatever you want to call them, tenants, I guess you could say, of people that broke off from Mormonism that still continue to practice this. And those
Uh-huh.
are the ones that tend to be seen as like the cult, bad member society groups. And I'm like, they are. And so is this big one that you're ignoring. It's a cult
Yeah.
going on right here. There's
Right?
so much
Hmm.
stuff that they have now tried to whitewash or make seem acceptable because they have had to conform to the pressures of society. And they
Hmm.
claim
And try to be
they
acceptable. Yeah.
right, and they claimed it was God that told them to stop it. I'm like, no, no, it was society that told you to stop it.
It was more acceptable. It comes from God, right? That's funny. That's really funny.
Oh,
But,
but
but,
I
but, but, but now, are these men supposed to be attracted to women who are unattractive or who are made to feel unattractive about themselves? Like, where,
yeah.
there seems like a conflict of interest there somehow.
So what makes the women attracted them? Is it the submissiveness then? Or like the willing to the willingness maybe.
Mm.
Even some women like it don't have choices. Like as a kid, if they're getting married off, it's just like he already has 20 wives, but you know what? You're gonna be number 21.
Wow.
And it's just ridiculous because even the person that started Mormonism had over 40 wives and
What's he
they
gonna do with them all?
bury this.
Just
They they cover
possessions,
this
possessions.
up. So you can't know. And it's just like, well, he's being a dickbag too. Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just wanted another place to put his dick.
Ugh.
And then they use the excuse that, well, women needed to be protected. They needed the safety of marriage. Okay. While
But
I
they
can
didn't because out there on the prairies where Mormonism started, there was a shortage of women. How is this?
yeah, yeah. It's it's just so annihilate. Yeah, so it just feels like no matter what a woman does, you're having to hide who you are. Maybe not all of yourself, but definitely aspects of yourself.
Hmm.
And then whether or not you feel safe in the world is another thing. Because Robin, I was like you, there were certain things that I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing because I didn't want that sexual attention because I still hadn't healed my stuff, or there was still like a lot of pain around it. Um, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I want to wear tank tops outside. Plus, it's hot. And I'm like, I will wear shorts. Like, but my knees, I'm like, ooh, look at how great my legs look from all the belly dancing I'm doing. So it's kind of like appreciating my body and the beauty that it gives to me. And it may not,
Hmm.
look the fantastic, but I've also learned to accept and love my body from a functionality perspective instead of like a physicality. So I am
Mhm.
grateful that my heart keeps pumping blood to keep me alive. So that aspect of myself I can appreciate. I appreciate my digestive system because I can gain my nutrients that I need and help eliminate waste. So, kind of even just looking at it from a scientific or medical perspective, how can we start appreciating our bodies
Hmm.
without feeling the pressure to accept it on a physical level?
Yeah, I find that when I'm a weight loss coach and I'm coaching my clients about that, that when they can learn a little bit of self-love, then a lot of that emotional eating can go away because they're not hating themselves quite as much. A lot of bad stuff comes from self-hatred, you know?
Uh,
And if we can get over hating our bodies and hating our minds and hating our thoughts and hating like almost any aspect of your life you can start to hate and judge yourself for and not feel good about. But when we can, I want to say when we can embrace our the goddess, when we can embrace who we actually are, embrace ourselves from our soul perspective, everything shifts. Everything shifts, and we no longer have that judgment against ourselves, and we can start loving ourselves. And self-love is a good place to start with everything. You know, every aspect of our lives improves when we can realize that. So, you know, I found that a lot with coaching. It's like so many people just have so many aspects of themselves that they hate. And once they can work past some of that, they start to feel empowered. You know, it changes everything. When you care enough about yourself to establish a daily routine that involves journaling, that involves, you know, taking care of yourself, that involves some exercise, that involves some yoga or some breath work or some something, any practice. But you have to start from a place of appreciating yourself or you're never going to do it.
Yeah. And this concept of self-love being selfish, I just
Mm.
have to nix that right there because here's how one of my previous mentors explained it to me. Back in 2020, she was creating this course called I Choose Me.
Mm-hmm.
And or I choose me for yeah. It was supposed like you're choosing yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but the concept came to her because she had been reading an obituary where a woman had died, and all that was mentioned about her was how awesome she was for other people. She would always bend over backwards. She was always willing to do this. This, she's going to be remembered for this. And it's just like, she didn't do anything for herself. It was for other people. I don't want to be remembered like that. I am not a woman who is willing to sacrifice everything for everybody else because I used to be that woman in Mormonism and it almost killed me. I am not doing that again because I know that I am
Mm.
worth more than that.
Well, when we
And
do that, we turn against ourselves. Like Gabar Mate talks a lot about how that personality gives that person cancer, or that gives that person some other illness because they're not expressing their true desires. They're just
that's,
expressing themselves through somebody else's desires.
yeah. And even now, I'm catching myself when I'm trying to do something for my husband and it's not really for me. And like sometimes he'll be aware of it too. Like last night, I needed something for dinner because he already had food he could eat. And so I was like, well, no, maybe I can just eat something here, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, no, why don't you get something for yourself? So I'm going through some items and then I said, hey, what do you think about this? Should I do a whole salad or a half? And he's like, why are you even asking me? Because that's what I do. It's I ask him because that has been like how it usually has been to get an opinion. And then more often than not, sometimes I lean in the direction of him only because there's a part of me that still feels like I can't have my full desire, my full what it is that I want. And it's not
Mm.
that he's ever taking that away from me. It's I'm still being run by this program, even though it's not as dominant as it was, it's still in there.
Yeah, you're being run by the context of his opinion,
Mhm.
or your need for his approval or something.
Yeah. And then I'm just like, okay, now this piece needs to be addressed. Because like there were years, like even leaving Mormonism, where it was if you are not taking care of your husband, you're a shitty wife. So the fact that he wouldn't eat, I was feeling like it was my responsibility. Like he was busy, he was in meetings, he didn't have time to eat. But it was still it felt like my responsibility if I'm not taking care of him. And it didn't help that, he he got really sick with valley fever several years ago and almost died. And his mom did not understand what was going on at the time. And he was like wasting away. You see him from the side, he didn't even have a butt. He
Oh,
was like nothing, very pale. And his mom looked at him one day and asked me, "Are you even feeding him?" And I'm just like, "What the fuck?"
wow.
And I was like, number one, if you pay attention, he's sick. Number two, you should know by now he does most of the cooking and always has. I don't mind cooking for him. He wants to cook for me. So I let that. But
Guess what?
again, it was just this
Capable of eating
whole
for himself. Yeah.
right. It was just the not understanding. He is sick. There is something physically, medically wrong with
Mm,
him that
mm.
is causing him to waste away. And you're too busy wrapped up in your own shit to see that he's almost dying over. He's yeah.
Wow. Mm.
So it yeah, just like this concept of self-love being selfish, I call bullshit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You
Otherwise,
know,
yeah.
yeah, we're taught that though. We're taught that, you can't be selfish. You don't want to be selfish. It's not a virtue or whatever, that's sinful. But to be selfish, okay, to be selfish, but within the context of compassion and caring about other people is there's not really anything wrong with that, as long as that we understand that other people have their needs. And I think really being clear about our boundaries and what our boundaries are, and this is where I am and this is where you are, and that we are not the same. You know,
Yeah.
I am me, this is my responsibility, this is you, this is your responsibility. And, if we want to come together and agree about some things, then that's great. That's our shared responsibility. But as long as we're like really clear about that and what is my need and what is your need, then it's not selfish anyway. It's just a declaration of what is our boundary and what is our space and what is our right, and
Yeah.
claiming ourselves should be fully within our power instead of instead of always feeling like we have to be something for somebody else and give something to somebody else. And like nobody should have to feel that obligation, I don't think. You know,
Yeah.
it's nice to be that, but to be selfless is a little bit not respecting ourselves in a way.
Yeah. It's taking it too far.
Hmm.
And even with selfishness, for to me, that means that there's a malicious intent behind what you're doing, whatever action that is.
Hmm.
And self-love to me is not that. It's understanding that, hey, I am going to have like a mental breakdown unless I go outside right now for a few minutes before the kids get up and like
Hmm.
let myself have some peace and like just be able to connect with myself, connect with the earth. Even just doing something like that before addressing your kids coming in or your dogs or your other animals or even your spouse. It's like you
Hmm.
because so much of what we're taught is women have to give, 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 give until you have nothing left, and then you still have to give. And it's
Hmm.
like, no, no, no. But I know the whole put the oxygen mask on first. It will
Yes.
flow over that. But in all sincerity, like resentment starts to build up, anger towards your family and the people around you, anger at your spouse, like for not feeling like you have the the space, the time, the ability to do something that really matters to you or that really fulfills and nourishes you. And so yeah, I don't like people combining self-love with selfish because to me they're not.
Yeah, it's
It's
really
the intention behind it.
right. Right. Yeah. And I think that's an important distinction, and it's such an important distinction. And self-love is so necessary. It's like you said, it's the oxygen mask that we all need, and we need to put it on ourselves first. And we need to really grow our spirit, and we really need it to remember always who we are before resentment builds up. Because how are you helping anybody if you're resentful and angry? That's not love at all.
Yeah.
you know?
And some people might be able to feel that resentment. And then it's like, well, don't do it then for me. And you're like, well, now I have to.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. And I'm hearing ravens outside, and they always show up when truth is being spoken.
Yay, Ravens. That's cool. Hmm.
So yeah, I think you're right, Robin. A lot of this it circles back down to self love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, self-love, self-appreciation, and really being willing to do the work to make sure that we can preserve that because society tells us we can't, you know, culture tells us we can't, people tell us we can't. People will shame us. We will feel guilt, you know, but we have to get past that and know that we can and know that that's where we find our power and our growth, you know, really. That's
Absolutely.
who we are, and we need to always remember who we are and always be respectful of that.
That raven keeps talking while you're talking, so I'm like, he's
And
speaking
and I would
truth.
go further and say we have to be respectful that other people are on their own journey and everybody's on their path, and we're all actually probably trying to get to the same place, but we're all going at a different rate, at a different pace, and with different sets of knowledge and different limitations and limiting beliefs that have been fed to us from different aspects of our culture, and I think that's another thing we just have to respect, acknowledge, and appreciate that everybody's coming at it from their own space and everybody's probably doing the best they can with what they've got. But it's our job to elevate ourselves and to elevate anybody else who comes across our path if we see that we can give them hope and a sense of possibility for for more, that there's more. Because people forget and they don't know, and they
Yeah,
lose their power and they throw their power away and they pursue things that really aren't helping them. Mm, and I just think we're all here to help each other, you know?
yeah. Help us helping each other rediscover who we really are.
Yeah.
And there's so much empowerment in that. And for how disconnected and powerless a lot of people feel, this is this is part of the healing antidote. And part of this is grief too that has to be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
And and as it's acknowledged, some of the pain starts to ease up. There's not
Yeah.
so much
Grief from the
heaviness.
death of self, you know?
Yes.
I think that's where the grief stems from. It's grief because we haven't allowed ourselves to be selfish enough, to be self-loving. And grief that we've given so much away. It becomes a collective grief. It's not just a personal grief. It is personal sometimes, and it turns into like depression and resentment and all kinds of ways that we can act out that grief, but trauma. But the grief is real because we haven't allowed ourselves enough self-love and to be who we are.
Yeah. I think it's easy to accept suffering as the normal. Um, and I know, granted, it was over a decade ago now, but I had a lot of medical issues, and medicine gave up on me and was like, "You're in chronic pain. This is just how you have to deal with your life." And it was suffering and miserable, and I was like, "I don't want to live if this is how it is." And so I had to start looking at other things. Well, hey, you want to know one of the things that eased up my suffering? Leaving Mormonism.
There you go. It's not interesting, right? Isn't that interesting? You acknowledge yourself and some of the suffering stops, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So just knowing there's another option that's out there. Suffering is not the end all be all. It's part of a story that we tell ourselves to make sense of why things are so painful.
Yeah, right? And suffering is part of the human condition, and it is almost like the job of humans to grow beyond their suffering. You know, it's like the pathway to enlightenment, if you're a Buddhist, is to transcend that and just to realize that, yes, there is suffering, acknowledge the suffering as a pathway to growth, like you were talking about way back in the beginning, where um, guilt and shame and that is actually an opportunity when we can fully understand it and start to analyze where did we go wrong? What's missing in this picture? What have we forgotten? Not, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, what have we forgotten about ourselves? And what do we need to remember? What can we bring back to come home to ourselves? Where do we want to be? Who do we want to be? Who are we creating now that wasn't possible because we were suffering, wasn't possible because we didn't love ourselves enough?
Those are some really profound questions and great journaling ones. I'm going to have to pull these out and journal them on my own.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
I know we've
Yeah.
talked about a lot today, but I feel like it was stuff that just needed to come out and open and light be shined upon it so that it can get the attention and the healing and recognition that it deserves so that we can heal, we can reconnect with ourselves and with each other. We can create those healthy, meaningful, respectful relationships that we want with ourselves, our body, with other people.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of different topics here that we can um work on for the future, that we can investigate. And I think that that's another thing, if we can embrace the idea that possibility is available to us, and that if we examine everything with deep curiosity and questioning, that we will find out what we're missing, what more is missing, and what we've forgotten to, and what we've cast aside that is good, and what we need to cast aside that is not working for us, that doesn't serve, and that keeps us limited in any way, because we can be limitless if we can understand that we don't have to be limited.
That gets a hell yes for me.
Hell yes. Hallelujah. I don't even think we know how much power we really have until we start to claim it, and then we find out that there's more and there's more and there's more, and it's pretty much like what we take for ourselves. And as long as we understand that there are other people and they're all on their own trip, then it's not a bad thing. You feel selfish about it. Um you feel like this is all about me, 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 but no, it's about us, 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 and about raising the power of others to it. As we explore more and learn more, we can help others too. And I think that's an important part of it too, is to have compassion and empathy for other people, and to understand their learning too and their process.
Yeah. And learning to be okay with it, that it's not something personal, which
Mm.
I know is like really hard not to take things personal.
It's hard because it is, it feels personal, and it's personal from the trauma that we're coming from, the suffering, our own personal suffering and our own personal story. But then when you look at the bigger picture, everybody's on the same boat. Everybody's in the same boat, and everybody is trying to get beyond that. And some people haven't even realized what that is or how far they could go, or some people don't even see that they are suffering or that their lives are limited. And then something's gonna happen to them one day and they're gonna realize it, and they're gonna be searching too. And that's where, we reach out and do our best to sort of guide people, give them what they need to empower themselves.
Absolutely. And there are going to be some people that don't even realize they're on a boat.
Yeah, that's true. They may never get it. They may never get it. That's they had this whole idea about reincarnation. Like you have to keep repeating that story until you do get it. But, I mean, I don't know if I actually believe that, but it is an interesting way of looking at it, you know, that we are all meant to evolve to something so much higher, but do we get to it in this lifetime or do we get to it in another lifetime? Is it going to take us how many lifetimes? But eventually we get there, I think, um, somehow, somewhere. How many
Yeah.
people come to that realization on their deathbed? Oh my God, what did I miss? Oh, I missed all that. All that, and I could have done. Well, okay, so the place to start is now. What are you going to do now? So you don't get to that point on your deathbed where you're living with all this regret and all this knowledge of who you should have kept up with and what relationships you should have maintained and what you should have done, what you could have done, all this other stuff. It's like we get to do it now and we get to remember that because we're only here for a short while and we need to do as much as we can and love ourselves as much as we can. And we get to and we get to choose to.
Yes, we do. And knowing that that is our choice and
Mm,
claiming that, so empowering.
yeah.